I found an old trick in a woodworking book that basically uses two boards with notches to clamp a picture frame. It actually works pretty well. I've already got this frame glued together, but the way that this works is you put your pieces in like this, you've got your front and back piece here, and then you'll add your side pieces, and it only takes 2 clamps to lock this in place. So I'd put a clamp here as well as on this side to clamp this together. The problem that I've found is that it's still difficult to hold the pieces up to put the clamps on, and besides that, if you decide that you want to make something a little bit bigger, you're gonna have to cut out new boards every time for whatever frame dimensions that you have. So I thought there's gotta be a better way to do this with something that's gonna be a little bit more adjustable, as well as holding both your end pieces up. That's when I came up with these clamping aids here. You only need to make a set of these and you're set for life. Not a long video, but this is now my favorite way to clamp frames, and it is actually very inexpensive to make. What I have in front of me are what you'll need to complete this project. All the dimensions and everything is going to be on the website, which will be in the description. I do need to explain that there are a couple ways to do the tracks. Because this clamping aid is something I'll use more rarely, I'm going to ditch the expensive T-tracks altogether and create basically my own T-tracks out of a couple 1/4-inch pieces of plywood and a few blocks. But if you're going to use this often, you can substitute this project with T-tracks and work just fine. Whether you're planning on using T-tracks or not, we first need to add gaps in our plywood that's big enough to accept a 3/4-inch T-track that's 3/8 in thickness, which we'll do now. Now that the gaps are cut out, like I said, you could come in here now and attach your T-tracks, either by using epoxy in the inside or screwing it down. Obviously be careful because I'm using 3/4-inch plywood. That doesn't give me very much space right there to add screws. But if you do use the T-track method, it's gonna be a lot easier, but I'm again gonna go beyond that. What I'm gonna do now is I'm gonna create some blocks here that my bolts will fit through. I'm also gonna make sure that the head of the bolt is below the surface a little bit because I want this to sit flush to the top. To find the center, I'm just gonna draw an X. I'll drill these now to the diameter of my T-bolt, and I have a 5/16 here, so I'll do it at 5/16. With the T-bolt pressed inside, I need to come in here and mark where the edges are, and I need to create a gap on this, like I said, which will allow the head to be right below the surface. I think the easiest way to do this is just to use a table saw, so I'm going to raise the blade so that it's just the thickness of my head here, and now I can carve each one of these pieces out. With that done, you can see that it fits right inside the block. Now you could use epoxy to hold this in place, but I wouldn't worry about it. It's not something that I think is necessary. It's going to be held in place with the tracks later on. Because like I said, I'm going to be creating my own T-tracks, I'm going to just basically add these 1/4-inch pieces of plywood on the top, and then I want to make sure that I've got this gapped right. So I'll just put one on one side and one on the other side. I'll push it up like this, and then what I'm going to do is I'm going to add some glue to the bottom of this, as well as use some staples to hold it down in place. Now that these are attached, I'm going to go ahead and add my back blocks, and you'll do this whether or not you use the T-track or not. You'll be adding this back block here, and I'm just going to use some drywall screws to add these. To finish this up, we just need to add a hole to the center of each of our blocks. I'll use my square here now just to find the center. We'll drill each of these out at 5/16 of the drill press. Now, the one thing that I would add to finish this up is some kind of paste wax, or even adding polyurethane to the top of this. Alternatively, or even with the wax, you can also use painter's tape to protect the surface. To use this, I'm going to take my shortest pieces, and I'll take one on one side like this, make sure that both sides are squared up pretty good, and then I'll lock this down and do the same thing with the other side. Now I can take my longer pieces, I'll line them up on the ends like this, I can take my shorter pieces now and I'll add them. Now I can take a clamp, add it to the end like this, and then another clamp on the other side, and just squeeze up until they line up. These look like they line up right away, but there you go. It doesn't take very long at all. You can adjust this in the middle if you need to, but that's it. It's a really simple way to put together picture frames, and it doesn't take a lot of materials to do it. You probably have all the scraps you need laying around your shop. Anyway, this is a simple project. I didn't think I could do it all in a bite size on my main channel, but I'm glad that you're here. Let me know what you think about this and maybe some ways to improve this. If you leave a comment, please thank my patrons that help keep this thing going. I really, really love my patrons. They help keep the website going, and it means so much to me. But remember, as always, to keep making things.